there are 20% of us who are born into the world highly sensitive, which basically means that our nervous system is wired differently than someone who is not highly sensitive.
You're listening to the Wealthy Woman Podcast, and I am your host and wealthy mentor, Dr. Michelle. My mission is to empower conscientious women entrepreneurs to create a life full of abundance, purpose, health, wealth, and joy. In this podcast, you'll learn how to elevate your health, lifestyle, and surroundings so you can tap into your power, show up more confidently, and focus on what really matters, sharing your gifts, better serving your clients, and showing up even more for the people you love. This is today's businesswoman, the wealthy woman. Hey ladies, welcome back to another episode. This week, I had the pleasure of interviewing Heather Dominick. So Heather's work caught my eye because she specializes in working with highly sensitive entrepreneurs. Now, I've heard of and identified as a highly sensitive person in the past. So I was really curious to learn more about Heather's work. So she is a impressively successful and highly spiritual woman. She's a former high school drama teacher who actually collaborated with none other than Bette Midler. She graduated from NYU, where she received her first coach training and is the winner of the 2015 Best of Manhattan Coaching Award and creator of the 2015 Stevie Award winning virtual event called A Course in Business Miracles 21-Day Discovery Series that attracted close to 6,000 official registrants from all around the world. She's appeared on Lifetime television and has been published in numerous books, including Stepping Stones to Success alongside Deepak Chopra. An exceptional facilitator and teacher, Heather's known for creating a safe, sacred community for true transformation, whether she is teaching a Business Miracles class, delivering training online or in person, or mentoring members of her Business Miracles community in her various mentoring programs. She's helped thousands of highly sensitive entrepreneurs release lifelong limiting beliefs, overcome fears, and learn how to build their business in a way that actually feels so good that they can't help but create solid, sustainable, high-level financial success. Heather is also the founder and leader of the highly sensitive entrepreneur movement. So, hey, Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here and so looking forward to our conversation, Michelle.
Yay! So, aside from your little bio, tell us a bit more about how you got here and really what is a highly sensitive entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will start by saying that I've been self-employed for 15 years now. And for the first 5 of those 15 years, I did not know that I was highly sensitive. I had never even heard the phrase highly sensitive before, but it was at that time in my business, it was actually the first time that I brought my business across the $1 million mark. And it was a very dark time. And yeah, I know, when it should be like fun and celebratory, right? But it really was not. It was definitely a period of a lot of overwork and a lot of overwhelm and overexhaustion, and really put me in a dark night of the soul. I was really questioning everything that I was doing and, how I was doing it. And was this path of self-employment really for me? And, what is this craziness of this industry that I'm in? And through that dark time and that self-inquiry, I was connected with Dr. Elaine Aron, who is the founding researcher of the highly sensitive person, work that began in the mid-90s for her. And when I first heard the term highly sensitive and understood what it meant, I wasn't so surprised that I was highly sensitive, but what surprised me was when I took one of her assessments, how highly sensitive I was. I was off the charts. off the charts, highly sensitive. And so I'm always a believer and teacher of the fact that your ideal client is a version of you. So I brought one of Dr. Aaron's assessments into a group of 25 women entrepreneurs that I was coaching at the time. And yes, every single woman in that room was highly sensitive. And not one woman in that room wanted to be highly sensitive. So that was really the beginning, both my own experience and then my experience with those 25 clients that really showed me that there's something very, very important to be addressed here. And that was really the beginning of what now is the highly sensitive entrepreneur movement. And basically the gist of it is that, according to Dr. Aaron, there are 20% of us who are born into the world highly sensitive, which basically means that our nervous system is wired differently than someone who is not highly sensitive. So we have the ability to just take in stimulation at a very, very high degree. And that will impact, how we process information, for example, as well as just, our day-to-day experience out in the world that is filled with sights and sounds and smells and all other forms of stimulation. And so the work that I do and the research that I conduct now builds upon Dr. Aaron's work and really applies what is needed for someone who's highly sensitive, who feels called to be self-employed. What do they need so that they can really ensure that the self-employment endeavor journey is really financially and personally successful and rewarding?
Ugh. That's so cool. I imagine other people would have this question too, but would you say that people who identify as empathic would also qualify as being highly sensitive, or would you say that those are two separate things?
That's a great question. I can't answer the identified part, but I would say, in terms of straight definition, that someone who is truly an empath is on a higher level of the spectrum than someone who is highly sensitive. With that said, someone who is truly an empath is really going to encounter a higher degree of, difficulty and challenges, because the person who, again, is just truly an empath is, experiencing overstimulation or the intake of energy, if you will, at a much higher degree than someone who's highly sensitive.
That makes sense. I like how you use the word spectrum. So it's kind of like on this continuum, which
for sure.
That totally makes sense to me. Cool.
Yes.
That is so awesome. So I'm curious, Heather, what was your key driving force to becoming a female entrepreneur yourself?
Great question. I would say it was probably a mixture of naivete and, desire to create. When I first started my business, again, I've been self-employed for 15 years. I really knew nothing about self-employment, but I started my business in 2004. And that was just, a couple years after 9/11. I was living in Manhattan at that time, and where I still do live. And there was just this real, energy throughout the city. It was a very intense time for all of us, no matter where we were living, but definitely for those of us in the city. And there was a for sure pulsating essence of, what are you doing with your life? And what do you want to be doing, and do those two things match? And so, I think it was really, again, timing. I loved my work as a high school drama teacher. I loved my students. I was very, very frustrated with the system. So I knew that I, wanted to be creating more than the system that I was working in allowed me to be able to do. And, so again, timing, wanting to create more, and a big old nice dose of not knowing what.
Oh my gosh, totally. I feel like so many people can relate to that. It's like, we don't fit in this box.
For sure. For sure.
I love it. So as a highly sensitive entrepreneur, how do you stay motivated when things don't go as planned, which, happens all the time as a self-employed person?
Definitely happens all the time. That is no question. And, the irony is I would say that is my motivation. So, I really am, well, let me say first that in my work, I've identified, what I refer to as 12 top HSE shadows and 12 top HSE strengths. And one of our strengths as highly sensitive entrepreneurs is that we are extremely creative. And then from there, one of my own personal strengths is that I am a high learner. So those two combined, and when I can really support myself in being in my strengths and not in my shadows, when something doesn't go as planned, that motivates me to want to learn why. And then to create it differently so that it can be done even better.
I can totally relate to that.
Yes.
Awesome. So over the years, or most recently, what book or person has inspired you the most?
Yeah, such a great question. So whenever I get a question about a book, I have to go back to like my first and foremost love of a book, which is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, that will just always be the standard, and the first step of the influential book ladder. And I can definitely say to this day, and I don't even know how many times I've read it because I go back to it a lot. And then from there, I would probably credit A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, because that book really started my journey with A Course in Miracles, which definitely influences the work that I do in service to highly sensitive entrepreneurs now. And then from there, I would say the most recent would be the book Diana Herself by Martha Beck, which is a really fabulous allegory, and in my opinion, really describes the journey of a highly sensitive so very well.
Fascinating. That is so cool. I'm so curious. What is your main takeaway from To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yeah. Well, I think my main takeaway, again, is it's just been an affair over, many, many years, but has always been the theme of justice. And what's so interesting is that is one of our HSE strengths, is that we have a deep belief in justice. And that has always really driven me, and shown up in all different types of ways throughout my life. But, yes, the journey of justice and the telling of the truth in spite of it being unpopular.
Oof. I got the chills. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What has been the most terrifying, risky, or profound decision that you've had to make in regards to your business?
Yes. Well, again, interestingly and ironically, I would say it was probably the decision to serve highly sensitive entrepreneurs. And the reason why I say that is because, I started this movement in 2010. And at that time, I had already been self-employed for, almost 5 years, and, over 5 years. So go 6 years. And I was making a shift in terms of my business focus. So that was number one. Number two, no one was talking about this. I was even told at that time, do not use the words highly sensitive in your marketing. People aren't going to understand what it means. And if they do understand what it means, then it's going to turn them off. And I did it anyway. And it has proven to be absolutely needed, as well as I know that, for whatever you want to do with it, but there are definitely copycats out there. So it was a risk, and it has proven to really be a valuable direction that I've taken.
That's so interesting. I'm curious. Do you find that highly sensitive entrepreneurs tend to gravitate towards certain professions or lines of work?
It's a great question. I would say that we definitely tend to be service-based, and that we can be found in multiple service-based professions. So we have members in the Business Miracles community, everything from, absolutely coaches in all shapes and forms. However, more traditional businesses such as dentistry, insurance, real estate brokers, architects, jewelry designers, and on and on and on. So again, yes, service-based, but absolutely not locked into, any particular pigeonhole of service.
Very cool. That's awesome. All right. So pivoting a bit, I'm curious, has your health ever come between you and your business?
Fantastic question. And absolutely, just about. Yes. So for those of us who are highly sensitive, we absolutely have a, let's say, a tango relationship with our health. One of our shadows is definitely overall health issues, particularly digestive issues. And through my work, I have identified what I refer to as 3 primary HSE coping mechanisms. There's the coping mechanism of pushing, the coping mechanism of hiding, and the coping mechanism of combo plattering. I am absolutely a recovering pusher. And what that means is that, in order to cope with my sensitivity, which I didn't understand at the time, a highly sensitive who gravitates towards pushing is that we will get done everything that the other 80%, the non-highly sensitives, we will get done everything that the non-highly sensitives get done, and it will come at a cost. And that is typically a cost to our health, to our well-being, and or relationships. And that is absolutely my experience is, again, for years, not understanding that I was highly sensitive, just trying to cope, make my way in the world. I would push and push and push till absolute exhaustion, and the effects on my body, were retrospective for sure, meaning some of them I experienced immediately. I used to get massive migraines. I used to have major digestive issues. And then, they rippled out as well, meaning that even once I understood that I was highly sensitive, I started shifting the way that I was doing things. The body will hold what the body will hold. And so there, have been, health issues that I've had to address, even as I no longer gravitate towards the coping mechanism of pushing. The good news is that because I have such a higher level of awareness, I've been able to take care of what needs to take care of in regards to, healing and supporting myself physically, while also the business continuing to be able to move forward and, to serve those that we do in the community.
Yes, I love that you bring that up, because I'm such a huge preacher of our health is our foundation and it's our ceiling. If our health is holding us back, we cannot excel and break through ceilings and get to the next level, whether that be in our business, our personal life, our relationships, and all of that stuff. And I think that what you just said is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, so well said. It's very true. I love that foundation.
Do you, what's that?
It's a good quote for Dr. Michelle Rock.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any specific self-care practices to help you recharge, or any non-negotiables that you have in place?
Yes. It's so interesting because part of what I teach in regards to the coping mechanisms, which are part of a larger teaching of the HSE coping cycle, is how to really actually break the cycle of coping, soothing, and recovering, and to be able to instead be more proactive as a highly sensitive entrepreneur. And one of the ways that I teach is most effective and impactful is what I refer to as energy management. So energy management is, working with some tools that I've developed as well as others that I have adapted, and having those in place to have a way to really tangibly be working with your thoughts, your feelings, and your energy proactively, so that you are in a space to be able to respond to the level and degree of energy that comes, quote unquote, at you as a person who's self-employed, rather than reacting, which for those who are highly sensitive, who have not been trained in regards to how to really manage their sensitive nature, then that is the tendency, is react, recover, react, recover, react, recover. So energy management is absolutely key for me. And I start every single day with a practice that includes using some of the energy management tools, as well as engaging in inspirational reading, working with A Course in Miracles, and meditation. And I just find that, if for whatever reason, maybe I'm traveling, or, I have a day that is very, very full and somehow that routine gets missed, although it's very, very infrequent, but when it does, wow, do I feel the difference. So that energy management practice is absolutely a non-negotiable.
I love that. The morning ritual, I think, is so, so, so key. And I love that it doesn't have to look the same for everybody.
Oh, for sure. It doesn't have to look the same for everybody. It doesn't even need to look the same for you all the time. I mean, mine has definitely shifted and changed. And I do think morning ritual is a valuable timing for energy management. And I always emphasize that also is not the best for everyone. Some others really need to be up and moving, first thing in the morning, and then, maybe, coming to a space where you can sit down and put pen to paper at another, part of your daily routine another time. So it's so important to really understand what works for you in terms of it being, let me say, it's serving the intention that it's meant to serve, right? Versus if we're avoiding or resisting because we're like, oh, I don't want to do that energy management thing because that means that I'm actually going to change and I'm going to, do things differently, and I don't want to do that. That's not what we're talking about at all, but really, finding your way so that the practice can be truly supportive of, having you in your best space, again, to be able to respond rather than to react.
Yes. I love that. So I think that energy management is a really amazing entrepreneurial trick or hack that you've developed. Are there any other tools that you have that help to keep you focused and really productive during your day-to-day?
Yes, so many. Particularly what comes to top of mind is really working with time differently as a highly sensitive. And so I have tools that I've developed that really support us in being, able to identify what our natural circadian rhythm is, which is different again for each of us, and then how to really work with that in a way so that we can be our most productive and, most purposeful self in a way that, again, just matches who we are. And typically when you do that, then you find that you can actually pretty much get more done in less time. Yes. Once you are able to really give yourself permission to work differently, do it differently, it's not going to look like the, standard 9-to-5 corporate. It's most likely not going to fit into a lot of the, planning and, time management more traditional tools that are out there that you'll, find at your local stationery store. So you have to be willing to go through the process. But once you do, and those are what the tools that I've developed that can support you and really being able to identify, again, the rhythm that you work best in, it's really, really so rewarding.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And having that freedom, I think, as an entrepreneur is so incredibly important. Like, just knowing that your day literally doesn't have to fit into other people's days, and that it is different for you, and maybe even different for you at different times of the month, especially for women who are menstruating. I talk a lot about that, and the emotional connection, our energy, our mental clarity, all of that stuff, I think is so cool to play around with.
It's so true. And it's really so powerful when you do. And what I always like to emphasize as well is that, one doesn't mean you don't have the other. I'm a really big fan of finding what I refer to as the both and, meaning that just because you're going to pay attention to your rhythm doesn't mean that you don't get done what needs to get done. It just means that you're going to most likely get it done in a different way. And I think that's so important for those of us who are highly sensitive, especially for those who tend towards the coping mechanism of hiding, because often things like self-care or well, that's not my rhythm, or I don't feel like it, often find their way into, being unreasonable reasons of why you can't actually, create what needs to be created and, take the steps that need to be taken to get the results that you say that you want. You can have both but again, you just have to be willing to engage in the creative process of getting clear about what that looks like for you.
Yes, totally. Awesome. Do you have any blogs or podcasts that you cannot imagine your day without?
I'm not much of a blog reader, I have to be honest, but I am a massive podcast listener. So I definitely am a Super Soul Sunday podcast listener for sure. And I also appreciate Oprah's masterclass. And I also, so funny, there's this podcast, it's called Great Women of Business. And I'm laughing because I'm totally just going to say up front, anyone who might maybe goes and listens to it, that yes, it is a little cheesy. It is definitely a little cheesy in its formatting, but I really appreciate the content. They really highlight, women like Estee Lauder and, I don't know, there's Coco Chanel and just, some other greats. And I just like knowing and listening to their stories. And then I'm also a big fan of Insights at the Edge with Tammy Simon.
Oh, I haven't heard about that one.
Oh, yeah. So she's so fantastic and really hosting a lot of the thought leaders in the, let's say the health, well-being, and, healing arena.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Heather. So if you had a little magic in your pocket, what is the one thing that you would change in the world?
First of all, I really love the idea of having a little magic in my pocket. I just really appreciate that imagery. And I mean, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is, really the ability to have a higher degree of acceptance, right? Acceptance of differences in all degrees, acceptance of differences in race, acceptances of difference in religion, acceptance of differences in socioeconomic, acceptance of difference in sensitivity. I could go on and on. It is the area where our fear has the most permission to be expressed and causes so much difficulty.
That totally makes sense. That association with acceptance and fear. Ooh.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the problem?
I know. Yeah. So interesting. I think that's something to sit on and check in with yourself. What am I not accepting? And if so, what am I?
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful frame into coaching questions. Beautiful.
Yes, right. So what is your current project or passion?
Well, I would say that, right now I am beginning to work on the content for our spring 2019 training retreat. And I lead two training retreats. I lead a training retreat twice a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. And for highly sensitive entrepreneurs in the Business Miracles community. And I always am creating new content for each training retreat. It's where I reveal the next level of the teachings that I've developed. So we're going to be focusing on shame shields for the spring 2019 training retreat. And this is based on some work that came out of the Stone Institute at Wellesley College, which is about, the ways that we defend against shame and how that then has, like a negative impact on what it is that we are looking to create. Could be anything, relationships, etc. However, we'll be looking at it through the lens of the impact that has on what we're looking to create in our businesses as highly sensitives. So I'm just really diving deep into that work now, and just really, really fully loving it and so passionate and so excited to share it with the community.
How exciting. Where is your retreat going to be this spring?
We usually do our springs somewhere in South Florida, and in fall, we're in upstate New York.
Fun. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so amazing. We have highly sensitives who are, in the Business Miracles community, highly sensitive entrepreneurs, I should say, who literally travel from around the world. We have HSEs who come as far as Africa and Iceland and Hawaii and France and Germany and all parts of the US. And it's really, really quite powerful and empowering to be in a room where everyone else is on the same alignment as you are, where most of us as highly sensitive entrepreneurs are used to being the odd one out. So it's a really, really potent learning environment to have HSEs in a room together in person, which is why it is an absolute imperative part of every Business Miracles mentoring program.
I love that. It's like where the growth happens is like in that in-person environment, I feel like.
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, there's so much that we can get done, via the, amazing miracle of technology that we have, but there's nothing like being in person. And again, especially for those of us who are highly sensitive entrepreneurs, because we're so used to being adverse to being in person, because we're so used to being in environments that are not designed for us. So we go above and beyond to ensuring that, the environment is fully HSE friendly. It's why it's always in a location that has, access to nature and the outdoors. And we have, natural sunlight in the training retreat room and HSE friendly food. And, it's just really powerful.
Basically recharging stations for all the introvert types or people who self-identify as introverts. Yeah.
Yes.
I can relate to that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share with the audience?
Well, there isn't. I mean, there's so much that we could continue to talk about, but there isn't anything that comes to top of mind. So, this is your show, and if you feel like we're complete, then we are complete.
Awesome. So where can everyone find you? I know that all of these identifying highly sensitive people are wanting to connect with you. So where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I would say first, if you've been listening and you're having a sense that you might be a highly sensitive entrepreneur, I would recommend that you go to hsequiz.com. And there you can take an assessment and it will show you if you are either somewhat of an HSE or super HSE, or if you're like me and you're a super uber HSE. And then depending on where you fall in the spectrum, you'll also receive a free HSE success guide after you take the assessment that will give you the first steps to really begin to work with yourself, as a highly sensitive entrepreneur. So I would say that would be a great place to start.
Perfect. And I'll link to all of this in the show notes for everybody so they can quickly click on it. Thank you so much, Heather. That was a ton of fun and super informative.
Thank you. I loved our conversation, Michelle. So appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that is a wrap for this week. I hope you loved this interview. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone you love. Also, a loving reminder and nudge, early bird enrollment for your metabolic reset ends this week on February 28th. So if you've been on the fence, now is the time to enroll so you can save $500. You can learn more and schedule a chat with me at wealthywoman.co/YMR. Also, if you're digging these episodes, please leave a review. It helps the growth of the show, allows me to bring on more amazing guests like Heather, and helps more women take charge of their health. So tune in next week for more awesome and actionable info. I will chat with you then. All right, ladies, thank you for listening to another transformational episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You know my mission is to help inspire and empower women to share their gifts, better serve their clients, and show up even more for the people they love. So if you enjoyed this episode, leave an awesome review so more women can find us and join us in creating a life of wealth.